This lesson is on classifying angles and classifying triangles. So let's go ahead and talk about the different kinds of lines that we have. One of the lines is called a segment, where we have 2 points on both ends of the line right there. And then the other one is called a ray. The ray has a point and an arrowhead on that other end of the line. And the third one is called a line, where you have arrowheads on both sides right there. Now let's go ahead and talk about angles. So angles is basically an array that is brought over, and you have 2 arrays next to each other like this. And where the 2 arrays meet at in that corner is called a vertex right there. So with that vertex, this is the angle that we're looking for right there. Okay? So now let's go ahead and talk about reading an angle. To read an angle, you need to have points. So for example, let's call this point A. We'll call this the vertex, point B, and we'll call this point C. Now to read it, we're going to go from one end to the other end of the points. So for example, let's say we go from point A, and we're going to go to point B, then we're going to go to point C. And so that angle is called angle A, B, and C. Now you can also go the other direction, going from C, B, A. But you can see that both of those angles has to have a B, which is the vertex in the middle of the alphabet right there. Now let's talk about protractors. So this is a protractor, and what it does is you start from a 0 degrees right there. So these are degrees that we're reading from here. And if we have 2 rays on top of the 0 degrees, then from here, one of the rays continue to be on this bottom base right here at the 0 degrees line, and then the other will carry on to the other side. For example, let's say if we go to 10 degrees, I actually have is one ray that's on the base of that 0 line, and then the second ray, which is 10 degrees right there. So the angle in between the 0 and the 10 degrees is what we're looking for. Okay, so now let's move on to another degrees. If I go 20 degrees, same thing. I'm going to start from the 0 right there is my base, and then I'm going to have a 20 degrees, and the angle between the 2 rays right there, this is what we're saying is 20 degrees right there. Now let's continue on to different degrees. If I go from 30 degrees, so I have a 0 degrees still on the base, then I have is 30 degrees. Angle between the 2 rays is 30 degrees right there. Now let's skip around, and let's say I go to 60 degrees. So I still have my 0 degrees on there and 60 degrees. So again, the angle between the 2 rays right there is 60 degrees. If I go to, next one is 90 degrees. So I have a 0 degrees right there on that ray, and then 90 degrees right there. This also at 90 degrees is called the complementary, and it's also called a right angle. So you may hear those different vocabulary words as well. Now let's move on to another degrees. So if I have 120 degrees, I still have my 0 degrees and my 120 degrees. So again, the angles between those 2 rays, which is then this huge thing right here, that's going to be 120 degrees right there. Now let's move on to a different degrees. What if I want to go to 150 instead? So I go from 0 and 150, and again, the angle between the 2 rays right here is 150 degrees right there. Okay, now let's go to the last one, 180 degrees. So 180 degrees will be from 0 to 180 degrees right there. And again, we're saying then it's between the 2 rays. So you have from here to all the way to the other side right here. And that is also called the supplementary. So you may hear the vocabulary word is supplementary. And so now let's go ahead and talk about triangles. So triangles, there are a couple angles that we're talking about. This is called an acute angle, where it is less than 90 degrees. There's another one, which is the right angle, which we talked about, also the complementary, and this has to equal exactly 90 degrees. Also notice that in 90 degrees, they always put this square right here in the corner. So if you see the symbol right here, automatically that's a 90 degrees. We also have an obtuse angle. So as we saw, the 120 degrees, 150 degrees, is an obtuse angle because, as the definition says on the bottom, it is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. And the last one is a straight angle, which we saw, which is exactly 180 degrees. Now let's look at example 1. So in example 1, I have a couple of rays going on. I have this right here, I have this right here, and I also have this right here as well, okay? So with those rays, what we're trying to figure out is what is angle B, which is all of this part right here. So what is angle B? Well, I know a couple of things. I know, for example, like this line right here, right, is 180 degrees because it's a straight line. I also know that this is 50 degrees because that's given to me. So if I know that's 50 degrees and I know a straight line is 180 degrees, I can do my math and say, well, it's 180 degrees, and if I subtract 50 degrees, that will give me then this angle B right here, okay? And so for that reason, I have is 130 degrees as my angle B. Now let's look at example 2. So notice that something is in there in that picture. I have a right angle right there, which is the 90 degrees. I know that this is 63 degrees right here because that's given right there. So what we need to find is angle B, which is this piece right here. So let's look into that. So if I know my right angle is 90 degrees and I know the 63 degrees is given, I can subtract those two angles and that gives me 27 degrees. So angle B is equal to 27 degrees. Now let's look at example 3. So there's going to be several different angles that we're looking for. So we're looking for is angle B. We're also looking for angle C, which is this piece right here. We're looking for angle D, which is this piece right here. So this angle right here. And then we're also looking for angle E, which is all of this right here. So just kind of eyeballing it, you can kind of see if it's going to be less than 90 degrees, equal to 90 degrees, over 90 degrees. So let's go ahead and begin. So I notice that right there I have a little square that tells me if there is a 90 degrees angle. So that means that between this ray right here and this ray, all of this part right here needs to equal to 90 degrees. Well, I know that this is 29 degrees because it's given to me. So I can figure out what angle B is, right? Because then I can subtract my 90 degrees from 29 degrees, and that will give me 61 degrees. So angle B is equal to 61 degrees. Now let's move on. Now from here, let's take this straight line right here, which is 180 degrees we mentioned. So if I know then that this is 61 degrees, which is angle B, I also know that all of this is equal to 90 degrees because of that little square that tells me that. Then what I could do is then take this straight line, which is 180 degrees, and subtract it from this 90 degrees right here, right? To figure out what this angle C piece is right here. So what we're going to go ahead and do is 180 degrees minus 90 degrees will equal to 90 degrees. So angle C is equal to 90 degrees. Now let's move on to find angle D. So angle D, what piece do we know? Well, I know that this is a straight line right there, and so a straight line tells me it's 180 degrees. I also know that angle B is equal to 61 degrees. Angle C, which we just found, is equal to 90 degrees. So I can figure out what angle D is by going ahead and adding my 90 degrees and 61 degrees, which gives me 151 degrees total for that piece. And again, in a straight line right here we said was 180 degrees, so I just need to figure out is what is this little piece right there from 180 degrees. So if I take 180 degrees minus the 151, that's going to give me 29 degrees is that little angle right there. Now let's find angle E, so which is that last piece is this piece right here, okay? So what do we know? So I know that in this straight line right here, going back to the straight line, is 180 degrees. I know this is 21 degrees because it's given. So I can then subtract is 180 minus the 29, which we kind of did already right here in reverse. So if we take the 180 minus 29, that's going to give me 151 right there. So this angle right here should equal to 151. So you can see this is kind of like a puzzle piece. I know the definition of a complementary or a right angle is 90 degrees. I know a straight line or supplementary is equal to 180 degrees. So knowing those two facts right there, you're trying to take little pieces of angles and subtracting it to those two given angles of 90 degrees or 180 degrees to figure out what is the missing piece.